What's up?
How's it going, Joe? Part
Good.
two.
Part two, yeah. For the audience, we recorded actually a really good podcast, and then something happened to it, and it disappeared. I don't know what happened, but
It's in the ether. We're gonna do it again though. Better this
yeah,
time, stronger.
better, better for sure. I guess starting off for people who don't know you hard, you want to give a quick intro.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for having me on. I've admired
Of
your work a
course.
long. Great to
Yeah,
be here.
yeah.
Yeah, my name is Michael. By trade, I'm a software engineer. I've been in the field for maybe 12 years at this point. Probably the most interesting thing I have going on is that I've been quite entrepreneurial. I left college. I did a relatively large open source project in stream processing when that was kind of like in its heyday in 2010, 2011. I raised a little bit of money and did a startup where we admittedly kind of did everything wrong, and I learned all the hard lessons about what it's like to do early stage companies. Got very lucky and ended up selling it to Confluent anyway and kind of pivoted into the right
That's
thing.
cool.
Yeah, thanks. I worked as a product manager for 5 years. I've done streaming almost my entire career. And then I left Confluent, maybe a year and a half ago. I wanted to do another company, but I wanted to do it different for this phase of life. And so right now I am a solopreneur is the word. I work alone. I build a product called Shadow Traffic that helps folks in the streaming space. And I'm having a lot of fun. I get to do marketing, sales, product engineering all at the same time. And it really is the most fun I've ever had in my career. And
That's super
that kind
cool.
of sums up till now.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think you got on my radar. You were an entrepreneur posting about your kind of day to day and wins and failures and all that fun stuff and everything in between. And I thought that was super cool that you're kind of is live journaling about being an entrepreneur, which I know how it is. It can be gnarly, it can be fun, everything in between. It can have all four seasons in the same hour. So
Yeah, and none of it's fake. It's all. I mean, I think if you work at a job, you can kind of be at different artificial levels of happiness and sad. But with this, it's 4 seasons is like the perfect way to say it. And I've kind of found that building in public, it's just a hack towards increasing attention, helping people. It's kind of just good all around.
yeah, yeah, it is. What do you like about that? What's I guess how did you get started with your entrepreneurial journey? Let me back up there, then we can talk about kind of why
Yeah,
you ran in public.
I guess I kind of wanted to do something interesting when I left college, and it seemed like the thing that got everyone excited and popular was to like build your own open source project. And anyone who did that, you had a badge of honor, like I'm the author of X or Y and Z, and the bigger it is, the cooler you were. And I just wanted to be a part of that because everybody wants to make a name early on, and so
Yeah,
that kind of planted the seed where it was like, okay, it's not a business, but it is like a step down from that, where you're trying to grow your user base and get attention and get a community. And since then, I just love that. I love bringing people together. I love solving problems as a team, and it's only grown from there.
yeah,
What about you?
yeah.
Where did you start?
Oh, geez. I mean, I've always had an entrepreneurial nature. Ever since a kid, even just going around selling things to people, and started even like super early online businesses in college. Actually, it's back in the early mid '90s. So that was a while ago. But I don't know. I worked as a DJ for a long time. Was
No kidding.
a full time rock climber for ages, and so I guess if I found something I like to do, I think I just went and did it. Like there wasn't really a notion of, um, I guess I need to listen to the gatekeepers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's a good habit to have as an entrepreneur. And that's how I got started. And then, obviously, I had, in the 2000s, started several businesses, mostly while I had a job, right? But I think like that was a time where I was really good at talking myself out of continuing things, and so and I think that definitely I think is some things you got to go through where sometimes the business isn't a good fit. Sometimes you're not a good fit for the business that you started, which is a hard thing to admit.
Yeah.
But I think eventually over the years you get calloused enough mentally, or I think you just get enough scar tissue where not a lot of things phase you. So But it takes a bit to develop that, I think. And so I realized entrepreneurship, at least for me, was definitely more of a about emotional control and about having the characteristics to, I guess, just keep plowing ahead, even if it gets like insanely gnarly, which it will in a business. There's no doubt that it will.
Yeah. I
So
think part of the
yeah,
key is what you said is picking things that are small enough where you feel like when you're at the beginning, you can get started. They could be small businesses while you have a full-time job, try many
yeah,
different, if they're not a fit, just move on. I think the biggest mistake a lot of people make is they have this idea and then they stick to it for 2, 3, 4, 5 years and get no customers or one customer and they're just stuck and it feels crappy because you're like, well, I should be able to do this. It's a good idea. When the better idea is to just say, well, let's try 25 different ideas and
yeah.
whatever works. And you want to do something that is good for the world and compatible with your skill set. But there's just no reason to stay stuck.
No, but a lot of people do it because it's a proverbial thing. Like, if I just keep digging this hole deeper, I might get to the other end of the planet. Like, it
Yeah.
might just happen, might punch through. And you might, but you're absolutely correct. I think my litmus test is after 6 months, if you haven't got a paying customer, and that's pretty generous, actually, 6 months. But if you don't have paying customers and you don't have something that you're building into a repeatable business model, where you can kind of go to market with it, then I think you definitely need to look in the mirror and ask, is it me? Am I being stubborn? Is it the market? Am I what is it? What's happening? Or I guess more to the point, like what's not happening?
Yeah,
Because
yeah. I mean, it depends on
especially
the product. If it's like a database, you obviously need a longer time horizon for these things. But
for
there
sure,
are kind of levels and barriers to like, can I at least get prospects who are like seriously engaging with me on this idea? And I do think there's skill at taking the time while you build it to make sure you're collecting and growing your audience so that it does convert to paying
huge.
customers.
Well,
Time.
yeah, absolutely right. And even with the database, right? Like I noticed, it maybe replace customer with users, right? But if you had a database with absolutely no users in 5 years, and it was an
Yeah.
open source project, to be like, cool. Maybe I should look at this differently, right? Of course, Rickamini, right? Like he made a new database recently, and like that thing's got some stars and users and stuff. Like that's cool. I think he did it just to stave off, to satisfy an inner itch in himself. But like that's an example of somebody who's doing open source where it's hopefully getting some traction. He's a cool dude. So, and then for you, like starting a company, like walk me through that. Like you started a company, and what was for Shadow Traffic? Like, did you have any early, um, I guess, milestones you needed to hit mentally or on paper, or like, how did you know that you were going to be on the right path versus maybe fiddling away your time?
Yeah, I had no idea. So I knew
Okay.
I wanted to start a company. I was there as a Confluent for 5 years. The last 2 years, I was like, okay, I'm itching to get out. I've been here for a while. It's a great company, but I want to do something different. I noodled with this big venture scale idea that doesn't even matter. I never fell in love with it, and so I got towards the end of when I knew I wanted to quit my job, and I was like, well, what do I do? And I got turned on to the indie hacker scene for the first time, which
Oh
I don't
yeah.
love everything about, but I do like the idea of independence. And it was the first time I've ever seen people running their own businesses solo.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at that and I was like, okay, that's cool. And so I made a list of all the products that I felt like I could build or all the problems that I could help solve. I did it in like a day. Anything that came to mind, I just put it on the list. And then I sorted it by things that I thought were most likely to succeed. And then when I quit my job, I put up this blog post that said, I'm doing 4 startups in 4 quarters, and I'm just going to keep going until it works. Because for exactly the same reason you mentioned, like if I can't get signs of a paying customer in a quarter, I'm killing it. I'm moving on to the next thing. Fortunately, Shadow Traffic was the first one. I had to kind of claw that back, but it was like a good victory. And the things that gave me hope that this was going to be a business was, my strategy was number one, go on social media, LinkedIn primarily for me, a bit of Twitter, talk about the problem. Does
Yep.
anyone hear me? Like, does anyone relate to what I'm saying? The more concrete details you get back, the better. The more real stories, the better. That first phase went kind of well. And so then I reached out to kind of my second order network. I reached out to kind of everyone who engaged with my posts, everybody I knew who could possibly have this problem. I emailed them and I said, this is the problem that I'm working on. Can you relate? Have you had this in the past? And I got more head nods and I was like, that's really good. I built a landing page that basically kind of described the problem, a bit of the solution, and I threw up a wait list. I collected maybe 100 emails, and in those, I ended up having 2 prospects that closed within the first 4 months of starting the business.
Awesome.
And that was my very simple playbook to just finding interest and building to those customers and closing them fast.
That's super cool. And the cool thing is you're doing it in public, right? Like I think that's because all too often what I see is people they don't want to announce what they're building or that they actually are selling anything, right? And so it's like you could be building the coolest product in the world, but if you're obscure or don't have the audience, like I can make a pretty strong argument you wasted your time.
Yeah, if you don't
Because
have
the audience is hard to
distribution,
build. The audience, I think, is like, products. We can build stuff, you and me. We could build
yeah.
whatever we want, especially in the age of AI. But like AI ain't going to help you get an audience.
No, no, very much not. And I think people are scared that like, okay, either someone's going to steal my idea or what I'm doing is stupid. The reality is no one's going to steal your idea. Anyone who's capable of doing that, they have something else to do. And if it's stupid, have people tell you that early and have them save your time. But it's probably not stupid, or at least worse, it doesn't have a market. And it would be better for you to know that early rather than later.
Oh yeah, like building like I remember during the computer vision craze in the 2015, 2016 in Silicon Valley, the show captured this perfectly with the hot dog not hot dog app.
Yeah.
But like a lot of the apps were very similar to this. It's like, oh, we can do image identification, and I'm like, cool.
Why?
It's like so can like the 50 other apps out there that I can find on the App Store if I wanted, right? So it's okay. So then you still got some early indications of success, and like what happened next?
I just kept building from there. I have basically kind of the same go-to-market model that I've had. I would say what's been interesting is I kind of subscribe to a channel-based growth, a channel-based idea for marketing where you kind of try to figure out, well, where's my target audience? And then you run experiments in each of those channels and then you see what works. And for me,
It's cool.
very much like you, LinkedIn is an ideal place to grow an audience. I write about kind of the wins. I think that the interesting things I did early that nobody else does is I anonymously kind of wrote about how I closed each of my deals. So I talk people through all the things I did right and wrong as I closed each customer, leaving out critical details, of course.
Right.
And people do that because like I admitted to some pretty dumb sales mistakes. Where like on my first deal, they wanted to like charge a little less than I wanted, and I said no. I put my foot in the ground, which is incredibly dumb. Like you just want to close your first customer, and I got to reflect on that in a really honest way. And people, I've tried to keep that ethos up over the last 18 months, where whenever I encounter something new, I just try to use it as a chance to retrospect in public and connect with other professionals who know better, and then I learn, and other people learn, and it's been a great way to just incrementally add customers. I'm coming up on 20 paying customers now,
Awesome.
8 or 9 of them are enterprises, and just couldn't be happier, really. It's just been very satisfying.
What was it about that first opportunity that made you put your foot down?
I was worried that if it wasn't at a price that I felt like was right, I wasn't going to be able to build a business. And that instinct is kind of good. You don't want to like have a $50,000 product and charge like $500 for the first customer. That's not a sign of success. But you do want to book the first one because getting that public testimony and that momentum is so important for getting the next ones. And I don't know what the right ratio is. Like how many dollars should you be willing to discount? But I didn't really realize that earlier. I was like, it's do or die here. And that wasn't quite the right approach. The better approach is just get them in the door, help them have you build the product and just kind of keep moving.
Oh yeah, I remember one startup I was at. We made the iPads, the app that goes in the front of a conference room. It's the iPad app there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I think one of the first customers was actually Airbnb, but they got off the App Store and we're like, paid like $5 for this thing.
That doesn't feel right.
Yeah, but then it's kind of like the halo effect of okay, we can point to these guys are using it. And eventually, I think the contract got renewed at a much higher rate. But but it's a good it's a good first customer to have, or first that, and I think a couple others like that. Big customers with that you can kind of point to them and say, well, they're using it.
Yeah.
Why aren't you? Right.
Yeah.
So,
And you can kind of always figure those things out later. Like my experiences in general, if you get the pricing wrong the first time, people are very reasonable. And if you can transparently walk them through the value that you provide, they're like, yeah, you know what? That's fair. Everybody makes mistakes. We can kind of rectify this and do the right thing. And
pricing's
I've really
hard.
kind of encountered bad apples there.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think pricing is one of those things where you're constantly reevaluating it. like in it, and I think it's impossible to get it right, especially in an economy like what you have right now, where budgets are being reviewed, and who the hell knows what happens in the next hour.
Yeah.
It's the pricing. Pricing is one of those things where, yeah, I think you gotta have to be more flexible these days. And
Yeah. And with the economy in general, things being really hard, I mean, like you have to build things that people want. And I'll finally bring up
oh
the
yeah,
magic we were laughing about before, like vibe coding. If you can build anything you want, actually the skill that is probably most important right now is product management. If you don't know what people need
yep.
and you can waste a significant amount of time doing nothing of value.
But couldn't you just like do like vibe product management? Like just ask like one of the AIs like, what should I be building right now? Like what's cool?
So there's a term from a Rich Hickey talk in 2011 that he calls guardrail programming, and it's interesting because the context was actually in 2011 people were arguing about, hey, do we need programming languages that give us formal proof and use things like category theory with like Haskell and PureScript to make sure that like these programs are ironclad, they will work. And his remark was, this is like guardrail programming, like you're just slamming against the guardrails of the tests and the type checker. And is that good? And his idea was like, no, guardrails, like they don't tell you where to go. They just keep you on the road. But like that doesn't mean that that's the road you need to be on. It's the same thing here with vibe coding and vibe whatever. Like because the AI said so means I should do it is a terrible way to think. So as you can see, it's really it's pretty evocative.
Yeah, no, I think we're on the same page on a lot of this. I do vibe code. I think I wrote an article about this recently where coding's for me is it's fun again. I went through a period of burnout with just wanting to do any new project that required me to write code because it was like just a ramp up time. I'm like, oh, one of these again.
Yeah.
I was like, I got other things to do, like write a book, and other things. And so I took some time off actually, but recently I've been back at it and I'm just having so much fun. But I think this also means like people like you and me, we can write software and we also know the difference between like vibe coding, which I kind of equate to vaping and just, it's like, who cares, versus doing something for production. But the paradox of this is though, it's, a lot of people don't realize like, I can't remember who said it, but your prototypes usually end up being production. That's kind of how it works if you're not careful. And so this is the unintended consequence of things. What are your thoughts on vibe coding? It's the term du jour. It might be the practice du jour. I don't know.
A fine tool for the toolbox for prototyping. I do think we're going to see software kind of diverge into sort of two areas where you have like a vast majority of quickly produced, very low quality products. And then you sort of have the upper tier premium products that are built well and built right. And this is nothing new. I think in what's the book, Code Complete from Steve McConnell. It's like a sort of a classic entry level book. He kind of lays out what are the tools and methodologies that you use for different kinds of projects of criticality. And you kind of have like the rapid development. Let's just get something on the board so we can see what's going on. You have the mission critical medical device, and he has a quadrant of all these different things. And I do think vibe coding sort of has its place for just rapid prototyping, but I do help people keep it in the quadrant and don't like let it leak out into the more mission critical bits.
Oh yeah.
There will be money to make there. There is that case.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I've been dorking around with tools like Replit and Vercel and stuff. And I think it spins up a neat prototype app for sure. I mean, it's going to get better. I mean, it's but it's also the thing where you get this app back and now you have no idea how it was built.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think when you build software from the ground up, which we both have, the nice thing is you understand from the ground up how this thing works. So you understand if something breaks, like it's like, okay, cool. Like I push in this button over here, it does this weird thing over here. Like I can at least sort of understand how that, the side effects of stuff. But if you're just handed a code base now, it's an AI made, it's like, cool, now I get to figure this out or not figure it out, I guess. That's your other option, which I'm concerned that people are going to take. But at the same time, you're hearing all the prognostications about how anybody can make apps now. And you certainly can. So
the question is sort of like, what's the cost of validation from these tools? I think the narrative right now is I can write code very fast and I can execute it very fast. But at some point you must validate it either as you receive it or as bug reports come in and you have to unwind what's actually going on. And I do think that that is totally absent from what people are talking about right now, because
For sure.
it's bigger than you think. And it goes back again. I think there were a bunch of software studies in the 90s and the early 2000s about the cost of defects at different parts of the life cycle. So if you choose a bug at implementation time, it's pretty cheap to fix because you find it, you fix it right there. If you have a bug in requirements and you find it at implementation time or post-release time, it is so much more expensive. It's like 100 times more expensive to fix. And I don't think AI changes any of that. And in fact, if you're just receiving an entire code base back from a prompt, any defects in your requirements cascade all the way down into your post-production level, and they're just as expensive to fix. And so I don't know what the answer is there, because obviously there's some value in doing this, but it is something to be really careful of.
I think it depends on the risk profile of what you've built. If it's an app that just checks the weather and texts you about it, and you don't really care if it's right or wrong, I guess you simultaneously wear shorts and a rain jacket and snow boots. Like, you're prepared. You got it. Yeah. But if it's a mission critical thing like hospital software that you just like vibe coded using Replit or something, no, Replit's a great company. I have friends there, but just using them as an example. But if you're just vibe coding using one of these off the shelf tools for like hospital or like military grade applications, it'd be insane. Let alone the security profile of this stuff. You have no idea what it looks like. So there's that. It's it's interesting.
It's a weird time to be a professional. Like I do kind of miss like the 2018, 2019 era where people talk more about distributed systems and cryptography and performance. And there's actually just less discussion going on right there now. And it's just waves of industry, but I can't help it.
What do you think that is?
Money. I don't know. I mean, everybody wants to use AI. Everyone's building AI companies. And so people go to where there's money. I just sort of pine for a time when things are a bit more even keeled. And there's more discussions about programming languages and compilers, and they're harder to come by now.
It seems to be, yeah. I do miss the days of the 2010s. I feel like, 'cause you mentioned that earlier. Like there was, I think, even back to when you started your startup, right? Like I was doing startups around that same time, and it was a fun time. It was a fun time. It was you could do stuff in the cloud super cheap. You had Rails and similar tools. You could just spin things up quick if you wanted to. And not saying it was great, but you could do things. There seemed to be JavaScript libraries every couple months. Now they're every 2 weeks. But it was I think it was a really fun time to be building stuff. And
not to be doom and gloom, it is still fun right now. There's just a haze. I think the macroeconomic environment coupled with the pressure of people feeling like AI could replace their jobs, it just feels a bit darker. But there's always indie hacking to go back to. You can always make your own thing.
Yeah, and that's just it. Like you did that, and and I used to listen to the Indie Hackers podcast way back in the day. I think it was Cortland something or other that was the host of it. Stripe Bottom way back in the day. But that and what Startups for the Rest of Us. I still listen to that podcast. I don't know if you listen to that, but it's
I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's good. But like, walk me through the indie hacking. Like, so you had this decision. You're going to do this like mega VC thing, which was a path. And what about the indie hacker approach attracted you?
Yeah, honestly, I have 2 little kids. I'm kind of a homebody. I just embraced myself for what I am. I don't love to travel that much, and I just know if you do a venture scale company, you're really busy. You have to be on the road a lot, and I didn't want any of that. And but I did want to have that entrepreneurial drive kind of fulfilled. And I like the idea of doing this on my terms. Like all you have to do for a business is to provide something of value and charge money, and nobody else can tell you how else to do it as long as it's lawful. Those are the parameters. I really admired everyone in the indie hacking scene because they were kind of doing it how they preferred. And most of them are kind of doing B2C companies where they're building apps or they're building websites, and that's all fine. I just don't have any experience in that. I think what I am kind of doing that's a little bit unique is just doing this in the B2B space where, the onboarding customers is much more white glove. There are like legally binding enterprise agreements, and navigating that has been kind of its own thing. But I like the idea of deciding to take your career on your own terms and figuring out what's your personality, what works for you. And I think when they all line up, you really do produce your best work. This has been the best product I've ever written in my career.
That's cool.
Thank you. Yeah. It
Well,
feels good to
congrats.
find the best, fruits of your labor.
What about all the other aspects of running a business, right? Because I think when people, especially technicians, right, when there's the notion, oh, I'm going to go to a company, I think maybe the dream is I can just code all day long. What else did you need to learn about running a business that you may not have known before?
Yeah, coding is the minority. I think audience building is like maybe number one because if nobody can hear you, you cannot sell anything to them. So I would say I spend 2/3 of my time on sales and marketing, and then 1/3 on engineering, product, customer support. And that inversion is usually really hard for technical founders. And then everything in that sales and marketing space, for people like us, it's new. How do you present a message to people that they want to follow you? How do you have the social, gentle touch in a sales call to like get somebody to buy something from you without being pushy? How do you keep timelines? How do you negotiate when you're stuck on price? There are just so many things, and I say that almost like it's daunting, and it is a little bit, but it's fun. It's sort of like when you've learned, a lot of coding, you kind of want a fresh set of challenges, and there they all are. Everything to do with finance and admin, and you name it.
Taxes, which you just had to do
Taxes, yeah,
yesterday.
another one. Not that that was a more fun one, but it's another part of doing this really well. And
Hmm.
it sort of unlocks a whole nother dimension or layer to your career, I think.
Yeah.
What did you find most challenging to learn as you kind of forayed more and more into the entrepreneurial space?
I mean, I was thankful during my jobs that I got to work with a lot of the owners of the companies I was at, right? So I got a kind of a front row seat to, sales, marketing, being in meetings with big executives. I got this at a pretty early age, so I think I got a good schooling in terms of business. But I think for me, the biggest thing to learn was emotional control,
Yeah,
like not losing your shit when like things are not going your way, which
yeah,
that will happen. I think it's easy to panic. It's easy to freak yourself out because like business is really hard. And but I think over time you get used to it, I suppose. Like I said earlier, callous might be a good word, but I think that's maybe a bit harsh. But I think you learn to to not sweat certain things as much. But it takes time to develop that. That's what I think more than anything. If you look at whether it's investing, whether you look at business, um, having control of yourself, I think is one of the more important characteristics. Because from there, you can allocate yourself. I think the grace and the patience where you otherwise might not. If you're an extremely impatient person, which I am, you expect results immediately, right? And that's one thing I needed to learn was things aren't going to happen overnight. Things are going to take about two, three, four times longer than you think they're going to.
yep,
Things aren't going to go your way, and then so you just need to be able to persevere through things. And it took a couple failures for me to figure that out for sure. But now I feel like I'm at the point where I don't know that I could go back and get or want to get a job. Really, I'd be just wouldn't really fit. I really like what I do, but it took overcoming those hurdles. Um, I remember when my first kid was born. Actually, I had just left a job actually. I was extremely unhappy there, and it's definitely kind of at a crossroads. Like, what do I do? And that was hard. Figured it out and got back on track. But I think those are pretty dark. It's a pretty dark time because you're just uncertain and you start talking yourself out of stuff.
yeah, yeah,
And in business that's easy to do because uh, you just it's hard. Um, for one thing, I mean, even on a good day, it's hard. So, but you just get used to it, I think, right? And I think right now, everything seems to be clicking, but it's just you have to take the time to build the things that matter, right? Like the audience was a big thing, and that's. But a lot of people want to take shortcuts,
yeah,
and I learned in sales. I have my own sales approach, which I think works for my personality. I tend to actually get people to say no a lot, or at least try and tell people why I probably wouldn't be a good fit to work with. Because that also, they can either make up their own mind on it, and if they convince themselves that we're a fit, then I guess they made the decision on their own. I didn't need to convince them of that.
yeah,
So just learning things that work for you, I think, is one of the more important things. But also learning your temperament and knowing yourself. I think that was like the thing I had to figure out, because you could study all the business books you want all day, right? But nothing's going to prepare you for just the emotional whipsaw of like running a business day to day.
Yeah,
So
I do think kind of the part of what you're describing is like widening your perspective, and it gave me an example. When I first did my first couple of sales, I got really close on one of them, and then I felt like I was at the finish line, and all of a sudden the deal fell apart, and I got really really angry. And what I didn't realize was that, like, not only can this just happen of its own accord, that's just variance and luck, and is very common in sales. Also, there were a bunch of blind spots because of my inexperience. I didn't see why the deal was going to fall apart. If I had some more experience, I would have much earlier. And the more you go through that, the more adapted you become. The
what
more stuff.
happened in this deal? Like, walk me through this. Like, what happened, and what were some of the blind spots you should have seen?
Yeah, kind of a classic case where someone says they're a decision maker and then they actually are not one. And it's a big red flag if you're doing an enterprise deal and there's only like one or maybe two people that you're communicating with. They say, trust me, I can get this over the line. If you're not talking to kind of other directors, other managers, other people who clearly control the budget, big red warning flag. Any time you make a big purchase, it's a team effort. There's like a proper eval. If those things are absent and it's like too good to be true, it is too good to be true.
What were some of the red flags?
We didn't kind of hit the milestones. I mean, when you do an enterprise deal, usually there's some amount of technical due diligence, and that was kind of absent. It was just sort of like assumed, yeah, I think this product is for us. We would like to buy it. What is the price? If you skip to price too early, not only is that bad for you because you kind of want a price based on value, it's bad for the customer because the price doesn't really matter until they know whether the product works for them or not. Yep. And so all little things like that, where it's just like, we're going way out of order in the chain of value here. And that's, you could definitely spot that earlier with some perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason salespeople get paid a lot of money, right? And for techies out there, if you're looking for a new career, sales or sales engineering might be a good path for you.
Sales is easy. You just have to say the right thing at the right time. It's just knowing what the right thing is the
yeah, the right thing, the right time to the right person. It's and that's why I for me, I had to, early on, that was one of the things with sales where, one, you have to, if you're running a company or if if you're part of a startup, you have to get good at sales. This is like an inviolable rule. Like you need to sell. This is literally how you succeed as business. Yeah. But it's not a natural thing. Most people I meet, they don't want to sell. They don't want to take, it just doesn't interest them. It's scary, I think.
Sure.
Because, and the scary part is you might get rejected. Yeah. Right. And somebody might shine a light on you or your company or your product that you probably don't want to hear. But guess what? Still got to do it. So get used to it. I don't know how to tell people to learn about it, but you just got to go do it, I think.
Yeah. The hardest part is I think everybody could say, okay, I'm ready to hear 100 no's and have the door slammed in my face. The really hard part is once those 100 doors have been slammed in your face and you can't figure out what is the next door that I knock on, you actually have to like regroup and figure out, how do I go find my next set of leads? And that is the bottom of the bottom, where you're just like, am I done? I don't know. There's not a right answer about like, have I failed, or has this product been a failure, or do I keep going? And again, there's no criteria or strategy that tells you the right answer, but just deciding to do something there other than just blatantly give up is it takes a lot.
Oh yeah, and there's a reason entrepreneurs are psychologically profiled as near psychopaths. It's because of stuff like this, where like you continually beat the shit out of yourself, and then when it gets worse, you have to keep doing it to yourself even more. It's not like having a day job where you can just kind of go do the comfort of whatever you're hired to do. Like you literally have to go out and like eat what you kill. Right. And this is like a very different mindset that people need to understand if you're going to go into a business. I think everyone, they look on Instagram, they look on TikTok, look on social media, and it's like, oh, I could be standing in front of a private plane too. Right. Getting out of my Lambo. Like that's a consequence of success. And trust me, like a lot of rich people I know don't have those things because they realize they're kind of a waste of money. So, if you see somebody with a private jet and a Lambo, they're probably closer to being broke than you think, to be totally frank. Um, and so it's, but I think a lot of people want to go through the theatrics of like this, the kind of the theater and the ceremony of like playing startup, playing business person. But yeah, the 100 doors slammed in your face, and you get to go find the next, 100 doors to go knock on. Like that takes balls, and I think it takes, like I said, a bit of a psychological quirk that not a lot of people I think are willing to encounter, and also to also realize in the midst of that you're probably wrong, like something you screwed something up
Yeah. Yeah.
along the way.
And
So
despite all of that, it's worth doing anyway because you get to help people. Like if that's your main reason for doing a business, and it should be, you get to help people as long as
oh yeah.
eventually keep going, and that's makes it all worth it to me.
Yeah, and I think audience building, back to that too. Like, what were some of the things where that you had to learn along the way in terms of building audience?
That's a great question. I experimented with a ton of things. I tried some kind of posts about like what's the psychology of business. I do think the winning formula is like you kind of go out there and you pick a hard goal and you tell everybody about it, and then you publicly demonstrate success along that goal. Because anyone can say anything on the internet, but the people that the people that you want to listen to, they're credible in a way that they're showing you that like they walk the walk and they talk the talk. And so for me, I went out and I said, I'm starting a business. I'm doing 4 startups in 4 quarters. And I talked about the ups and downs along the way. And that was the thing that kind of helped me generate momentum in my audience. Because when I did start to share what's going on and I shared some wins, they're like, oh, maybe Michael knows a little bit about what he's talking about.
That's cool.
That seems to be, definitely one of the formulas. I think the other is you can always talk about other people's work. If you don't have anything else going on in your life right now, just share your learnings based on what you've seen from somebody else. There is infinite value to be generated from doing that. There's always more you can learn.
Yeah, yeah, that's super cool. Did it ever get frustrating?
Definitely. And it even still does. I think someone gave me the advice early on that like you can produce the same quality of content and one week it'll go great and the next week it'll go terrible. And I see those peaks and dives where for whatever reason my engagement will just really fall. And it makes me still question like, oh, is what I'm doing like helpful? And by now I should know the answer is clearly yes. I've had lots of people be like, I love your content. It's helped me learn. It's motivated me. Well, it's incredibly frustrating, especially in the beginning when you post for like months and it's just really not going anywhere. And I'm sure you've experienced the same thing too. You have a significantly larger audience than me. You've probably experienced that whole thing tenfold.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I'm kind of weird that way. Like I'm not that intentional about my content.
Really? I'm actually like,
No.
I pre-write. I really try to think if I'm going to put something in someone's timeline, I want it to be really great. And so I kind of obsess over what I write. It sounds like you're the opposite.
Oh my God, I'm like probably the opposite to a fault. Like even last Friday, I was just like in kind of a bad mood and made a post, and some people got pedantic about it. So I just wrote another post. Like people are pedantic. I'm gonna drop you as drop your connections if you keep doing this. Because I'm just like I just got so tired of it. So for me, I'm also I don't know. Like I just want quality connections, and I don't. There's certain things that trigger me, like pedantic people just drive me nuts for whatever reason. I was just in a particularly bad mood that day. But yeah, there's nothing where I post where I think it's like really well thought out. And the posts that I think do really well are usually like the dumb unhinged ones, right? So like I did this April Fool's thing where I completely changed my entire profile to what is
I
extremely corporate
I
and
love that.
serious corporate joke. Yeah, and people like I had some friends ask like, "Are you okay?" Like literally messaging me like, "Are you having like a meltdown right now?" It's like, check the date. Um, I'm actually having the time of my life right now. This is really fun. But yeah, most posts, I would say 99% of the stuff I do on LinkedIn is like very, very unintentional. But at this point too, it's kind of like, I don't know, like I post when I want to, I might go a week without posting. There's not any regularity. So I'd say don't look at what I do as any like, any inspiration because it's the exact opposite. Like it's like a Seinfeld episode. It's just not. There's no rhyme or reason to that. Whereas I know other people, who take a lot of time and are very meticulous about their posts. I mean, they think they have an assistant make them for them and all this stuff, and they may or may not do well. I don't know. So it's a crapshoot, right? Like
It's
You
part of
know,
what I like about this is like,
yeah,
you wouldn't want to read all posts from Joe Reese or all posts from Michael. That, like if that was your only content, it's sort of
no, it would
nice to see
suck.
in personality where like I'm kind of a meticulous person. I sweat those details and I want to present something that's like well reasoned. I thought about it. As a result, I probably post, I don't know, less than most people who are trying to grow. But if you're kind of just, you have a good vocabulary, a good set of experience, your words come naturally to you. Your approach actually works really well and is superior in a lot of ways because I don't know, maybe it just comes quicker, stress free. I don't know.
I don't know. I think real fast and I can write decently, so that's probably a
That's a
bonus.
resume.
But
That's a resume right there.
yeah, right. But then I look at my friends like Carly Taylor. She's basically my clone and one of the most unhinged people I know, and she posts just random crazy stuff, and that usually does pretty well, right? So yeah, I don't know. I think everyone's got their own voice, though, right? Everyone's got their own cadence and frequency. I think that the people I think who are more successful on social media in general, there's just a certain frequency of posting where, that more than anything, because you just got to say, in front of people in the algorithm, right, in the feed,
Yeah.
like that's going to get you more points just seeing your name and what you have to say, even if it's like, hey, I farted, have a nice day or something like
Yeah.
that would probably create more impressions for your name versus like a really well thought out post that you post like every week and a half or something, because the frequency on the feed isn't going to matter that much because people don't see you. But I think like the number one thing is just be front and center, whether you're hinged, unhinged, semi-hinged, whatever.
Yeah, there's just basic marketing. You have to be in front of your audience a lot, and
That's all it is.
above all, you can either entertain or you can educate. Just pick one, or do both at the same time if you can. But those are like classically the two channels to market, really.
Yeah, for sure. And video is the next one. I think like I've been going more into that this year. But I think that's the frontier I want to explore more because my natural tendency is to write, which I can do, I would say really well at this point. But I want to do more video. It's gonna be a lot more fun. So
Yeah, it's a changing landscape, and I enjoy that as well. It's not like we're just playing the same game forever. It's constantly changing.
no, but especially now, right? With AI, it's like you can make just the most fantastic sounding post ever, but you didn't actually write it. Like those unhinged posts I did on April Fool's Day, like I just asked ChatGPT to create a post from an unhinged boss who wants to be a thought leader, make pictures of him, the whole 9 yards, right? I didn't
Yeah,
do any of that, but I was like,
yeah.
coach it. I was like, just make it as ridiculous as possible. Like that
But
sounds like
it's your taste that got it to the point where it was funny. I think that's important. Like the
yeah,
output was the only thing that people saw, but your inputs, as far as like
true,
what's going to
yeah.
fit Joe Reese, like that's kind of like the key ingredient that would be missing in a lot of people.
Are you doing more like long form content? Are you doing like articles?
I do like medium form content where I try to write like bullets are pretty common in my posts where I try to pick a topic that usually comes from my personal experience and I try to distill it down to like 5 to 10 bullets. And for
That's
me,
cool.
that's just my style where I have very structured thinking, and that has worked for me. And I say all this, it's like I'm not trying to like net eyeballs. We try to help people,
Yeah.
that's always the way that I try to frame it. Like what's the maximum value that I can provide when I put my stuff in someone's feed. But yeah, I probably should try video because everyone seems to like that now.
Yeah, video and articles, I would say just, ubiquity in formats is good, but you got to be good at what you're doing too. Like, don't just, like I see it as Substack right now. Substack's become, I think everyone has a Substack. I'm pretty sure my dog has a Substack. Like, everyone's got a Substack. And like, but I noticed that most of the articles I read, it's clear that ChatGPT wrote these articles,
Yeah.
right? Because these people are putting out content at such a rate where I'm like, there's no way you could just write like 1,000 words every couple hours.
Yeah.
Like even for me, that's hard. I can write a lot.
Yeah.
It's like you're not. It's like, and it reads really well, and it reads like a bot made this. So it's just really obvious stuff. Like here's how a SQL optimizer works. I'm like, cool, awesome.
Yeah. And all that could be fine. I just think
Yeah,
you want to uniquely bring something to the table when everyone else is on with it.
bingo.
It's your personal experiences. Like what happened to you?
Yeah,
Because nobody has that, and specifically if there's something to learn.
well, that's what your content did really well, and that's why you got on my radar. It's like, okay, it's clear this guy is not like using an LLM for this content because like nobody would do that. Like, it'd be weird. But I just thought it was good content that came straight from the heart, right? Like it was just like here's a guy just going out there trying to make his way in the world. I'm like, I'll pay attention to that guy all day because it's like I've been there. It's hard. It sucks in some ways, and it's awesome in a lot of other ways, right?
Yeah.
But this guy's going through that, and that's so cool to see. So that's
Yeah.
I'm kind of living vicariously, through your adventure, and that to me is cool. Like that's good content. Like that helps me in ways. I don't even want your product because I don't have a need for it yet. But it's like I just but I bought into you as the founder of this business, which I think is the more important thing. If I ever did need your product, I'm like, yeah, he's a cool dude. Know what he's about.
Thank you.
He's genuine. So but that's
Reputation is everything. That's like another foundational piece of advice that I got. Like if you want to build a company, your reputation has to be really good, and you build it with compound interest. You just do good things for good people, and then just let it accrue over time, and hopefully, it reflects at the right moment.
When did you learn that?
Pretty early on, actually. I'm a huge fan of author Robert Greene. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's written things like 48 Laws of Power and Mastery, and I think that comes from his book Mastery. I read that when I was in college. That just really set the course for my career. About it is good to develop strong craftsmanship in something that you love. It makes your life more fun. You do better things for the world. It really does bring a lot of your life into alignment. And I think it is in that book about, if you want to become a great craftsman, your reputation has to stand so that you can kind of have the opportunity in front of you, and your work is a reflection of, all that you do.
Absolutely. I remember at the Berkshire Hathaway meetings, right before Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger at the time would start their Q&A session. They had a video. They showed this to everybody. They've been showing it for years, and the video was basically so Warren Buffett had I guess been asked to run Salomon Brothers, which at the time had gotten into some very deep water, very hot water over some legal activity, and they were being investigated by Congress. And so this video is Warren at the congressional testimony, and he says, I definitely apologize on behalf of all Salomon employees about what happened. These activities are a stain on our reputation. And he said he wanted to say, like, basically, there's a few things you need to know. If you lose money for the firm, I'll be understanding. But if you lose a shred of reputation, I'll be ruthless.
Yeah.
And it always stuck with me, right? I mean, I think Warren is one of those people that
timeless wisdom,
for sure. And reputation above all was the one thing he's espoused. And he's fond of saying it takes a lifetime to build reputation, and you can destroy it in minutes. And when we started, when Matt Housley and I started our company, the thing I told him was, money's great, money matters. Money's not what we should be focused on right now. When we get customers, we need to do the best job possible. So we build a pile of reputational capital. If we can build this, we can do a lot more things. If we can't build that, we don't have a business. And so
that's probably a good way to summarize everything we've talked about. If you feel like you find a problem that you can solve, just get people around you and build up your reputation that you're a good person to work with.
Yeah.
And things kind of take care of themselves. Opportunities will present themselves.
Big
people
time.
will help you and continue to grow.
But it seems like this is like counterintuitive and almost heretical advice.
How so?
I think the fixation is, what's on the bottom line. We got to hustle and make the money, right?
Yeah. It kind of just comes down to why you want to do this. I think you and I do this for similar reasons. If you're out here, what's the Jeff Bezos thing? Is it missionary versus mercenary? Like if you're a missionary, you want to solve the problem, you're going to do really well. If you're a mercenary, you might do well financially. Your work probably is not enduring. You're just not in it for the right reasons.
For sure. Then you're seen as mercenary, right? And maybe that's a good thing for you. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But it depends on what you want to do. But you're absolutely right. It's but if you're seen as being mercenary, it's then you're seen as being transactional, and you're going to go where the money takes you, and you probably don't have much allegiance to anybody. And so that's
exactly.
depending on what you're doing, maybe that's a good thing. Actually, I don't know. So there's If I'm, if I'm in a job where the game theory is like I don't have any the notion of reputation doesn't exist. Like say I'm a restaurant in a big tourist area, right? I'll never see you again, right? I can get mediocre reviews and probably still get business like that. Maybe occasional bout of food poisoning. You probably stay in business. I've seen that happen in different countries. Not the best restaurants. I'll never go there, but you kind of see that short-sighted behavior.
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. I don't
Yeah,
really know what motivates people to do stuff like that,
I
but
don't know either.
I feel like we've got it right. You want to build things that are of value to people and enjoy it all the way, and that's the way to live.
Yeah, I agree. Well, you're having fun with it, so that's what matters. Um, well, cool. Thanks for the the fun discussion. Round two, as they say. Hope
Yeah,
to,
hopefully this one makes its way out to the internet. We'll be very careful with the post on this one.
yeah, yeah. So for the audience, sometimes we use Riverside to record these. Sometimes the upload it records locally and uploads, and sometimes the upload something happens to it. So don't know why, but it's the gnomes. They don't want you to upload it, I guess.
So,
So
thanks for having me back. It's a lot of fun.
yeah, anytime, dude. Yeah, well, have a good one. And I guess for people who want to learn more about you, how can they find you?
LinkedIn's best place for sure. Just look up my
LinkedIn?
name.
Sounds good. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye bye.